on cooking a dinner, an authentic dinner from Spain. My name is Bill Bradley. I'm a registered dietitian. I want to welcome people from our Mediterranean Diet portal, our YouTube subscribers, and anybody that's new out there. Today, we're going to make an authentic dinner from the Mediterranean diet, specifically from Spain. And Spain is one of those places, it's very close to my heart because it's the first Mediterranean country I ever spent time in when I was like 19 years old. And I fell in love with the food. I wasn't even really that into food back then, but I think that might have been the beginning of my journey with food, because the food there is, first of all, the people there love the food. They celebrate what they eat, and they eat slowly, and it's really just amazingly delicious, fresh food. And we're going to make 4 recipes today that are all going to make a dinner together. And it's these are all really great recipes for the beginning of spring, which is today, because these, we're using a lot of fresh ingredients, a lot of local ingredients, which I'll tell you about as we go. But I'm going to start cooking because we have a bunch of things to get to. And the first recipe is one of my favorite recipes from Spain. And it's something that a lot of people don't really know much about or haven't tried before. And it's a garlic soup with croutons and egg. This is a great soup to make if you have a cold or the flu. It's really a very good immune booster, and it's also really could be a meal on its own, maybe with some bread, but we're actually going to add some stale bread to this. And we're starting by cutting 6 cloves of garlic. And it is called garlic soup. I've told people before, but just a reminder that if you cut garlic and wait 10 minutes and then cook it, it gives you a lot of the health qualities of raw garlic. If you cut garlic and just cook it right away, then you lose those qualities. But if you let it sit for 10 minutes, then it's really going to keep the allicin, which is the healthy ingredient in garlic that's really good for your immune system. Garlic's great for your cholesterol. And so it's all around a really awesome ingredient. And you'll see that 3 of the 4 recipes tonight have garlic in it. So to any kind of a stock pot or a crusade, we're going to add a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil, and we're going to heat that up, and then we're going to add the garlic to it. So for this class, if you have any questions, Winter, who works with me, is here, and he'll ask a question. And he's actually also mic'd up, so you'll hear him talk. So if you have a question about the Mediterranean diet, about cooking in Spain, about our programs, anything, you can ask as we go. So I'm going to add the garlic.
Oyster World shared, thanks for letting us in your kitchen. I'm about to start making some dinner, so can't wait to see what you're making and get some ideas.
Great. And we're going to share all these recipes. By tomorrow morning, they'll all be with this YouTube. Maybe even tonight we'll share those with you. What we want to start is to start by browning the garlic. And then we're going to add some smoked paprika. And this is actually stale bread. We add 2 slices of stale bread. One of the things that you'll find in the Mediterranean is that people don't waste a lot of food. When it comes to, like, if you're going to eat like an animal, you'll eat most parts of the animal. If you have old stale bread, you're not going to just throw it away. You're going to turn it into croutons, or like in Greece, they turned it into twice baked bread that they then which is called rusks, and they put tomato and onion and olive oil on top, and it softens it, and it makes it so you can keep the bread for a really long time, and it also makes it so you don't waste the bread. So,
Sandra said, excited to see what you're cooking.
awesome. Thank you. I mean, it's already smelling really good. And generally we would brown the garlic for maybe 2 to 3 minutes. But because of time, I'm going to we add the bread in next. And we're going to, the twice baked or more stale bread, add that in. And you actually want the bread to soften. So it's not like croutons where you put it in at the end. You put this in at the beginning. It already smells amazing.
Penny says, looks yummy. And I'm curious, for people who are tuning in, where are you from? Put it in the chat. Let us know.
Next, we're going to add some smoked paprika. And this is going to give it a nice, almost barbecue kind of flavor. Smoked paprika is what they use for like barbecue potato chips, but they also use it for all kinds of recipes in Spain. One of the things that I really love about Spain is that there's a lot of spicier flavors than some of the other Mediterranean countries, and so a lot of times you'll get surprised when you're eating something. Usually it's not overly spicy, but it's a nice spicy flavor, and that's what you get with this, with the smoked paprika. And so next we're going to add about 4 cups of chicken broth. And again, you know, when you don't feel well, it's actually been scientifically shown that chicken broth is good for you if you have a cold or the flu. And so we're going to add that in. And if you can have your own chicken broth that you make at home, that's the best. Unfortunately for me, I used up all the chicken broth in the last couple of weeks, so I'm using some store-bought chicken broth. So now we're just going to let this cook, and we're going to bring it back to a boil, and it takes maybe about 20 minutes for it to be done, and the last step is that we're going to add the eggs to it. So we'll get to that in a minute.
Catherine said, I imagine this soup will be good if you have problems with vampires.
Yes.
Pretty valid.
It's very, I think this whole meal is very good if you have problems with vampires. I don't see any vampires here, except for Winter, of course. But he's got to be on the computer, so I'm not worried about him.
The man behind the curtain.
So, speaking of fresh, the next thing we're going to make is this would be a main course, and there's a lot of different ways these are made in Spain. This can be a tapa, and a tapa is a small plate that you get with your food. And traditionally, the tapas were supposedly created because people were drinking wine and they really enjoyed their wine, and they didn't want flies and other bugs to get into their wine. So they created this idea of a tapa, which means top. So they would take the small plates and put it on their wine, and hopefully they put another something on top of the food. But when I was in tapas bars in Madrid, you go in and there's like 20 or 30 different things that you can order, and the ones that I went into, you could just point to them and they would bring you all kinds of really amazing dishes. But this dish is it's spinach with chickpeas, olive oil, and then we're going to add smoked paprika and cumin. Some people make this with a sausage like a linguiça, or you could use pretty much any. You could use a hot Italian sausage or sweet Italian. But this is a recipe that is very easy to make and is also a complete meal. So we're going to add some olive oil to any kind of a skillet, And then again, we're going to keep the vampires away with more garlic. We're going to add 3 cloves of garlic. Now, if you have an issue with garlic, some people don't do well with garlic. Some people with like IBS, other like digestive issues. You can, instead of using just like straight cooked garlic, you can cook the garlic. This is what they do in Italy actually for a lot of plates. You can cook the garlic and then take the garlic out, and then you just have a nice flavored olive oil. And for a lot of people, if they have issues with like actual garlic, most people are fine with just the garlic in the oil. So we're going to just again saute the garlic about a minute.
Bill, we got viewers from Michigan, Finger Lakes of New York, Alaska, Chicago, Virginia, all over the place.
That's great. Anybody from another country today?
Not seen anyone yet, but let us know.
So this is another super quick recipe. Welcome everybody from all those states in the U.S. We are going to add the spinach to this.
We got Alabama in the house too.
Alabama, I used to live in Alabama. In Huntsville, Alabama. It's probably nice and toasty down there, I would imagine. It's starting to get warm on this first day of spring in Massachusetts, but it's still kind of chilly. So we're going to add the spinach, and then we're adding some cumin, and you can have sweet paprika, smoked paprika. It depends how spicy you want it. I have a little of both in here. And then we're going to just cook down the spinach. And if it feels like the spinach is getting dry, you can either add more olive oil. And as you know, with the Mediterranean diet, the people are not afraid of olive oil. They eat a lot of olive oil. Up to 40% of calories in the Mediterranean are eaten from fat, and a large percentage of that is extra virgin olive oil. I'm going to actually just add a little bit of chicken broth to this. One of the great things about when you're cooking Mediterranean is you can always, first of all, you learn as you go, and you're always learning new techniques just by cooking yourself. But then you also get to see how things are cooking, and then you can decide what you want to do. And like chicken broth isn't in this recipe, but because it's a little dry and I didn't want to add more olive oil, you can just add a little chicken broth. Chicken broth is something that's a great kind of like a side for all cooking. It's I use it quite a bit for different things. And so I'm going to add just a little bit more of that. And then we're going to add the chickpeas. And basically, once this is cooked, it's ready. The final thing, we're going to add about a teaspoon of red wine vinegar to give it some nice acid flavor. You can use red wine vinegar. It's used a lot in Spanish cooking, but also one of my favorites is sherry vinegar that they use sometimes for like patatas bravas, which is what we're going to make next. So this dish is done. So this is like if you are like trying to figure out like a really quick main course to make, this takes like 5 minutes. And like I said, if you want to add some sausage to it, then that'll work just fine. Okay, that's 2 dishes down. The garlic soup is boiling. I've turned that down just a little bit. I'm going to add over here one more. So I mentioned patatas bravas. The first tapas bar that I ever went into in Madrid, I saw patatas bravas there. I didn't know they were patatas bravas. I just saw potatoes, and they were kind of red. And I asked the guy, the owner, I said, is this hot? And he said, oh no, it's not. It's not hot, not spicy at all. And so I said, I'll take some of that. And I had that. I had calamari, had all kinds of different vegetables and salads. And I took one bite of that Patatas Bravas, and it was one of the hottest things I had ever eaten. And he was just laughing at me, of course, because it was actually very, very hot. So what we do for Patatas Bravas is this is the easy way to make it. You can cook all the potatoes in a skillet, but what I did was I took potatoes, about 2 pounds of potatoes, peeled them, cut them, put olive oil and some paprika on top, and just bake them. And you want to bake them, you don't want them to be burnt, but the best is if they get kind of crispy. So you do it at about 400 degrees, and you need to watch them, but probably 25 to 30 minutes. You can turn them over once as you're going. A lot of people think when they're learning about the Mediterranean diet that people in the Mediterranean don't eat potatoes. They also think that people that are at a normal weight don't eat potatoes. But the truth is that they eat a lot of potatoes in the Mediterranean, in all the countries. And so Patatas Bravas is like the kind of national dish of Spain. Very, very famous. And the part that's the most famous is the sauce. So we have the potatoes, and you can serve it with like a garlic aioli, which is a like a egg mayonnaise with a little bit of lemon juice and maybe some garlic. But you always serve it with this nice spicy sauce. And so we're gonna make the sauce, and we're gonna actually have some olive oil measured out here. We're gonna put this about a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil in, and then we're going to add, surprise, some garlic. 2 cloves of garlic, chopped. The good thing about making Patatas Bravas at home is if you don't like it super spicy, then you decide. You can add things like cayenne pepper to it. We're not going to make it super spicy, although there's one unknown ingredient that I'll tell you about in a second. So when you're making an authentic dinner from any Mediterranean country, there's a few things that are going to be in most of the dishes. Almost always you're going to have lots and lots of vegetables. People in the Mediterranean eat probably about 4 to 5 times the amount of vegetables, fruits and vegetables per day that we eat here in the U.S. And it's like just like one of the reasons that they're so good is because of the way that they cook them. With lots of olive oil and spices, and it makes it like I've had friends that have gone to the Mediterranean thinking they didn't like vegetables, and then when they had them there, they were like, oh, I really do like vegetables, because you're cooking it in olive oil with garlic and just lots of different flavors. So we're going to add to this some flour. And this is going to make a roux, so it's going to thicken the sauce. And so we're adding about a tablespoon of flour. If you have any issues with gluten, you can use a gluten-free flour. That will also, you could use a little bit of cornstarch. So we're just going to add this in.
Bill, Sandra was wondering, do they use any type of salt in the Mediterranean?
Any type, like a specific type of salt?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So surprise, they mostly use Mediterranean sea salt because that's what they have there. And you'll see in certain parts of the Mediterranean people making salt, right? Or not making salt, but scraping salt and getting it right from the sea, from the rocks and from the sea. So it's usually a Mediterranean sea salt. Those don't have the iodine that a table salt has, but it has extra nutrients that a table salt also doesn't have. So we're just going to cook this until it just starts to thicken a little bit. When you're making a roux, you want to add the flour to an oil or a fat, and that makes it so that it'll mix together. Whereas if you added it to water, it might just clump up. So to this, we're going to turn it up just a little bit. We're going to add some paprika and tomato paste. And this is the unknown for me because this tomato paste came from our freezer, and my wife made this, and it says on the pack, it said tomato paste plus hot sauce. So this might be way hotter than I'm thinking, but we're going to add that in, and then we're going to use, again, some chicken broth. And we want to add not too much. You can add up to a cup, but we want to wait and see if this thickens. And we don't want it to be super thick, but basically we want it to be the thickness so that when we add it to the potatoes, it sticks on the potato. And we're also, you can add a little bit of vinegar at the end. You can see how thick this is getting. So we're going to add a little bit more. It's almost too thick. One of the great things about this particular meal is that, as long as you've already made the potatoes, you could make all of these dishes in about a half an hour. Okay, so we're going to let that thicken. We're going to add can add a little bit of vinegar. It's going to bring out the spiciness of it. Here we're using red wine vinegar, but like I said, I often make it with sherry vinegar, which gives it an extra special flavor. So as I was saying, with a Mediterranean meal, you're going to have vegetables, you're going to have a good amount of olive oil, some kind of a protein. Generally, there's a lot of beans eaten in the Mediterranean. They'll eat beans, like 4 or 5 times per week. It depends on where you are in the Mediterranean, but the healthiest areas in the Mediterranean, they eat more beans and less meat. When they do eat meat or chicken, the meat is usually grass-fed. The chicken is usually organic and herb-fed, and usually, oftentimes, if you're in the villages and the traditional places, the animals are raised from the people that are cooking. And so, once again, this is going to add just a little bit more.
Bill, Jenny from Utah is wondering, where do you get good olive oil? I live in a small town and my options are limited. How do I know it is good quality?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that's true of a lot of small towns and areas in anywhere, in the US especially, where it's really hard to get good olive oil. So I'm turning this off now because it's thick, and we'll make the last dessert in a second, and then we'll finish up the egg dish. But to get a really good olive oil, it's best to know something about where you're getting it from. Winter and I went to Crete a couple of years ago, and we visited an olive oil production facility, and these people really care about what they're producing, and they get their olives from a lot of local farms. They train the farmers about sustainability and about just having the best product. So that's a brand that I recommend. Unfortunately, olive oil right now is expensive. They had a drought this year, as did many of us, and the olive oil prices have almost doubled. So what do you do about that? What I do is that I get this particular olive oil, which I can grab for you. Maybe Winter could grab it. It's
Sure.
right over there.
Yeah, I'll go get it.
And so it's called Terra Creta, and you can get it on Amazon, and you can get them in 3 liter, or what I get is a 5 liter tin. And the reason I get such a big amount is because it's less expensive. And so even though this is like $100, so it's like $20 a liter, which is, it's expensive, but to me, it's like one of the most important health parts of the Mediterranean diet. And so to me, it's worth it. We do cook a lot with it. So we go through like even a 5 liter tin every couple of months. But if you don't cook that much with it, this will last you a while. You can keep something like this up to 2 years, but you have to know that the freshness is part of why it's so healthy. And the peppery burn that you get from olive oil when you take a sip of it it's a very strong anti-inflammatory, and you only get that in fresh olive oil. So it is important that you try to get it as fresh as possible.
We got someone here from the Dominican Republic.
Yay!
So we got someone international.
Okay.
We're also...
Okay, everybody. We had a technical difficulty, but we're back. And everything has been cooking for the last minute. And I want to show you just a couple of more steps for 2 of these, and then we'll do the dessert. So the garlic soup has been cooking in about 20 minutes. And the final step is we're going to turn off the heat, and then we're going to just break 2 eggs into the soup itself. And basically, the eggs are going to poach, and you could either let them poach and let the yolk harden, or what I like to do is I just stir it all together. And then you can see the egg is starting to coagulate, and it's looking really good. Okay. All right. So that one's done. And then the next step is the Patatas Bravas. And so we're going to take a bowl. We're going to add the potatoes to the bowl. And then the sauce. You can see how nice and thick the sauce is. You just add that right on. And I can smell it already. It's going to be a super nice spicy sauce. Really delicious. I think that the Taverna owner would be proud of me. So, next. So those 3 dishes now are done. With desserts, what is eaten most in the Mediterranean for dessert is fruit. And sometimes it's just plain fruit. Oftentimes it's just plain fruit. But sometimes they'll do something to bring the fruit up a couple of notches. And this dish is one of my favorites, and it's going to be, we're going to start with fresh oranges. And we're just going to get a fresh knife so we don't get the flavor of the garlic on. You don't want the garlic in your orange. Okay, so we just cut these. The best oranges I've ever had are in the Mediterranean. Best oranges, best grapefruits. The grapefruits are sweet, almost like an orange. And a lot of times, like for dessert, we want something sweet, but we don't have to have ice cream and cake and cookies and things like that. It's just we want something sweet. And so if you can just have fruit, like sometimes I like to make apples with honey and almonds and walnuts. And sometimes you add a little bit of wine to that. And that makes a really delicious dessert. This is a little bit similar. We're taking orange and we're going to add some walnuts that I already toasted, and we're just going to chop those almonds up. Nuts are something that are also eaten a lot in the Mediterranean. You'll see people, just like beans, nuts are eaten almost every day, sometimes right off of a tree. So we're going to add some of the chopped nuts to the oranges. And then we're going to just sprinkle on some cinnamon, some honey, and mint, fresh mint. You can use this as a garnish, or you can chop it up and put it right in. And that's it. You have a delicious, quick dessert that's not just eating orange by itself, but it turns it into its own kind of fruit delicacy. So there you have it. That's a really nice big meal from Spain. We have the I'll just bring these out. We have the spinach and garlic, and again you could add some sausage to that. We have the garlic soup, patatas bravas, and oranges with honey and mint. Really, many of these could be a meal in itself, and you wouldn't have like this. The garlic or the chickpea dish or the soup can really be a meal in itself. And something that is also served with all of these dishes in Spain would be a nice loaf of sourdough bread. And the sourdough bread has a lower glycemic index than regular bread, and it has some probiotics in it that regular bread doesn't have, so it's really good for you. So that's it. We are raffling off a book. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we are now starting to make lots and lots of YouTube videos, and we're going to be making a lot more. And so one of my questions to you is, what kind of video would you like about the Mediterranean diet, or even about just wellness in general? Because we're going to be making lots of different videos. So thanks again, and I'll see you next time.